So hello and welcome to the Profit Project interview series, where today we're going to be talking about all things generating growth in business. And I'm truly excited to have a good mate and somebody who's brilliant at generating growth within businesses on the line today, and that is Tim Hyde from Win More Clients. Welcome, Tim.
Let me take myself off mute first.
Great, awesome. Is that me or is that you?
No, that's mate. That was me, mate. Awesome to be here, and thanks so much for the introduction. It's been a while, and now we're coming out of COVID. It's all looking very exciting, and yeah, mate. I'm surprised you're not to see you with the COVID beard as well.
I did have a shave, I must admit, before I jumped on. It's kind of like, it's the one part that I have been keeping up with the shaving. The hair's starting to get out there a little bit.
Well, but I think that's important. You know, we've got to keep these habits up, and these good habits as well, right? So
yeah, very good, very good. But yeah, I always like to kick off these chats that I'm having with people around, you know, there's all that storytelling as well. You know, as business owners, we've all had many different, you know, introductions to business and journeys along the way. I'm always interested in people sharing their stories as to how you get into where you are today. What started business for you?
For me, I mean, I'm going to go back 41 years right now. Okay, now I'm not yet. I'm only just 47, so that puts me sort of. It started around 6 years old. But my inspiration actually came from Uncle Scrooge. Believe it or not, I had this Uncle Scrooge Golden Book, which was very well thumbed as a 6-year-old, and I thought this was really cool. And this duck, who to this day I still don't know what he does. I think he's either some form of trust fund baby or entrepreneur. No one really knows what Uncle Scrooge made his money from, but he would dive into these massive piles of money and look like he was having the best time in the world, and seemingly had all the freedom in the world as well.
Yeah, so true.
And I was inspired by this. And so when my parents first moved to Canberra way back in 1979, just after my sister was born, I went to school, and I thought a great way to get to know the neighbourhood kids was I was going to put on this circus. Right, and I was going to be the ringleader or ringmaster or whatever you call them. I can't remember now. And I was going to put on a circus. So I invited all the neighbourhood kids around to and got them to dress up and act in my circus, right, as horses and elephants and giraffes and all this sort of fun stuff, and lions and tigers, whatever. And we had apple bobbing and, you know, fairy floss and all these other sorts of things that I kind of told my parents that they had to go and organise. And this was amazing, right, because I charged everyone admission. I think I charged everyone 20 cents admission into my circus. And I had all this money afterwards, and I distinctly remember going to Trash and Treasure, and I bought two things with my ill-gotten gains for my first entrepreneurial venture. And I bought two things. I bought this brass inlaid oak cigar box, right?
I love it. I love it as a young fella.
Trash and Treasure, right? So I needed a stash, right? Because Uncle Scrooge has his money vault. I needed a stash for all my money, and I thought, this is amazing. And conveniently it fit. It was 7 by 8, right, rows of 20-cent pieces, and beautifully stacked in. I can see your banner behind you with all the coins stacked up on. But it was 7 rows, 7 by 8 rows of coins, and that fit perfectly for 20-cent pieces.
Love it.
And I think I could go 10 high. Right, I had all this cash. And the other thing that I spent my money on one day coming home from school, it was about a 15-minute walk home from school to where my parents were. And there was a sort of our local shops, which was just across the road from the school. And I spent a whole $1 on 1-cent lollies.
Yes.
All right. This is back when 1-cent lollies were a thing, right? And they were put into a sandwich bag, and you didn't buy Redskins because Redskins were 5 cents, and I didn't think they were really value for money at the time. Right? But freckles and fantails and all sorts of other stuff, right? You get one or 2 cents, and the bag was so full that the corners in my little bag were just twizzled over to hold everything in, and I ate the entire bag of 1-cent lollies on the way home from school one day. Right? Now I was hooked at that stage. Now whether it was just a sugar rush, or I was hooked on this idea that you could have fun doing something that made money that you could then spend on stuff, right? And as a 6-year-old, this just blew my mind. It was amazing that you could do this. And, you know, I've tried lots of things since, right? It wasn't an ongoing thing. It was just that sort of once off. But, you know, made and sold wine racks, imported Ugg boots from China. What else to do? You know, door-to-door sales, doing sort of garden maintenance, and trying my hands at all sorts of different things as a kid to sort of make money. I invested in shares at the time, and you know, that was all pretty good. But this idea that you could kind of, you know, just make money out of nothing, you know, really, really fascinated me. Now, I did this kind of dutiful elder son thing. I went off to university. I got myself a job in the public service, went slowly brain dead, thought corporate enterprise would be slightly better. When I did that, no, that was just the same. I just got paid more. And on the side of this, I got together with a couple of mates and we started, I guess, what I might call my first adult venture, my adult business. And this was very different. I started a digital a social media site, or a community journalism site, way back when social media and digital marketing weren't things that people use like they do today. That was way back in the sort of late 90s. And we sold advertising, right, in an area where people didn't know what online advertising was. And the thing that I kept finding about the businesses that we sold advertising to was that they would leave tens of thousands of dollars of opportunity on the table because they wouldn't convert all the opportunities we sent to them. Or they'd come back and say, hey, it didn't work. And I just saw this stress and this weight upon people's shoulders all the time. And I know that's a thing that you see with your clients, Craig. And I know if you're listening to this or watching this right now, you're going, business is hard. We have this perpetuated myth that, you know, most small businesses fail within the first 5 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that we're just not necessarily equipped to have, in those first 5 years, to know all the things that we should know to make a business work. All right? We don't know, you know, we know our trade often, right? Michael Gerber talks obviously about coming to business as technicians. You know, but we know our trade, but we don't know marketing. We don't know finance. We don't know how to manage staff. We don't know sales and, you know, sales. You know, we don't know the IT, we don't know the legal framework we need to work within. There's all these other skills that suddenly we need to work. And it's not that our business fails in the first 5 years. In fact, I think Commercialisation Australia say that about only 15% of businesses actually end up in a worse financial position than when they started, when they closed. But we've just burnt out because there's just so much we need to do. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. This is just a machine. This is a machine that turns awareness into dollars, and somewhere along the way delivers customer outcomes in a way that they want to keep doing it and tell other people about it. That's all business really is. And if it's a machine, it can be systemized and automated. We've been doing this as you know, the human race for the last, you know, 300 years since the Industrial Revolution. Once upon a time, one person did every part of the job, you know, and we were called master craftsmen. And then we put a bunch of people into a factory and we gave them one part of that job. And then we replaced the people in that factory with some form of conveyor belt as the work went along the line. And then we replaced the people on the line with the robots. That's all our business is. It's this machine that turns awareness and it pushes people through our business. And it's up to us to understand where our customers and where our prospects fall out of that process. And they do.
Yeah, that's so cool. There's such a nice broad breadth of stuff that you've covered in that sort of journey there, Tim, that he's just covered off so many angles that we're going to delve into a couple of those points along the way. Yeah. But, you know, I think you're exactly right. The DNA of all businesses is 99% the same. It's just the facade, it's the stuff on the outside that looks different. And, you know, we're servicing different people, we're doing different things. But the underlying components of that is all the same. And I guess coming to that, the systems, the processes, and automation and those sorts of things is obviously an area where you've come to in many aspects, and we'll delve into that a little bit later as well. But as you've touched upon those areas, you know, from your own journey, and, you know, I love that cracking introduction to entrepreneurship at such a young age, and you've obviously done different aspects and you've tried different things and all the rest of it. What are the challenges that you've seen, you know, within your own business in sort of having that evolution, the sort of couple of core points, and also those that you're seeing from your clients. You know, what are a couple of the key challenges that again, the DNA is the same, the overall. And funnily enough, you and I have talked about this in the past as well, but some of those underlying challenges, funnily enough, regardless of business, regardless of industry, there's quite a lot of similar ones that seem to pop up over time. What's your thing?
I think one of those things is, forgetting that, we talk about this B2C or B2B or whatever kind of stuff. And we forget that ultimately we're in a human to human business. It doesn't matter. I don't care whether you sell, you sell by tender or products or whatever. That's why, massive corporates try to personalize their brand so much, right? They give their brands these humanistic traits and identities, right? They call them by a name, because ultimately we're trying to connect human to human. And we do that, right? We build relationships. Strangely enough, they parallel how we build our own relationships, right? We meet someone in a pub, we offer them a drink, right? We say, would you like to dance? We take their phone number if it's going well, right? It's up to us to follow up that relationship, because if I don't call, guess what? Nothing happens, right? I have flowers and chocolates and picnics and movie date nights, etc. And eventually I get to the point where I go, I think like and trust me enough that I can pop the question. I can say, will you marry me? Right? Now we celebrate the yes. Right? We get a yes or no. If we wait too long, it's going to be a no. If we go too early, it's going to be a no. Right? But at the right time, it's going to be yes. And we celebrate that yes with an onboarding process. Now, in our personal lives, that onboarding process involves an engagement party, a wedding, and a honeymoon. And if we want to keep that relationship alive long term, Craig, I know you've been married quite a while now, as have I. We've got to remember flowers and chocolates and communication. Right? Sometimes we forget that, and the relationship starts to break down. And we can sort of course correct if we have that communication with our, in air quotes, customer. Right? But our business can't survive on one marriage like that. Our business needs lots of marriages, and each of those marriages are at, those relationships are at different stages. Some are still at the courtship stage. Some are at long-term, how do we take you to the next level? And how do we support you, very much like we try to do with our significant others? How do we support you to achieve your goals? And if we can do that, then our business has the opportunity. So that's the first thing I think that we've got to keep in mind. I think the second thing, and just coming back to that sort of automation side of things, again, it's the same process we do each time. A lot of the stuff that we do in our business is repetitive. And just like, we now use machines to build cars, whereas once upon a time we had, a bunch of people on a factory line as the car moved along. We can do the same thing in our business as well, right? And automation exists in our lives, whether we like it or not. Right now, the reminder message you get from the ATO to pay your BAS, right? And say your BAS is due or whatever. Okay, that's all automated, right? The bank fees that appear on your account every month, for the privilege of sending you an automated bank statement, right? Again, that's all automated, right? It doesn't, the reminder when you haven't paid your mortgage is automated. The reminder that you've got a doctor's appointment or a hairdresser's appointment is automated. So it's around us all the time. It's all right now. Now we can either stay where we are and watch our competitors implement this technology and pass us, or we can take advantage of that as well, because we know automation allows us to deliver more regularly at a lower cost. And if we can do that, then it frees up us as the business owner to work on higher value activities. And we make this mistake in our business, thinking that the only resource our business has is cash. It's not. The other resource our business has is time, and that's the one resource that's not renewable. Okay? We can't get more of it, of our time. Well, it is renewable in a sense that we get another 160 hours next month, or 200 hours, or 240 hours, or however much you want to work. We do get more of it, But once it's spent, we can't get it back, and we can't create more than that. And we've got to make sure that we're spending the time we're doing ultimately on the quality of our decisions, not doing the work. And that's a mistake I see so many business owners make, is we get stuck doing the work when that work is repetitive and can be either outsourced or, eliminated or delegated or automated to somebody else at a much lower effective hourly rate than we want to make. Right? Yeah. And I know you do this exercise with your clients, Craig, but I always say, look, write down the amount of money you'd personally like to make a year, write down the number of weeks a year you want to work, obviously deduct, holidays from 52, and the number of hours per week you want to work. And that gives you an effective hourly rate, right? Now, if you're not making, if anything you do that is less than that, it's going to change the amount you work or the amount you make.
Yep. So true. So true. And, you touched upon my heart. You're covering off a number of things that, fall straight into the world that I live in as well. But you're so true. When these challenges in there is the resourcing and time and cost is a part of that. And, you're always starting to talk about, I love to talk about return on investment, and you've touched upon there the return on investment, more not necessarily even in dollar terms. It's that value into the most valuable asset anybody actually has is that time that you talk about. And I did want to check back into the automation side of things, and bringing that full circle of how you've talked about, the human to human connection that, at one point automation went especially a long way to the point of contact points where it was just so impersonal that people started to get a little bit circumspect about, the automation and those sorts of things. And I know that you've got a really good approach, and, it's not necessarily automation for automation's sake, and it's making sure you've got that touch point, and there's ways of obviously automating things to still ensure there is that human to connection. So I'd love for you to touch on that side.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, let's preface that and say the goal of automation is not to appear impersonal and robotic. Right? The goal of automation is to scale our personalization, our communication. So that's the first thing. And we also think that, automation is not just email after email after email. It's defining our process and driving the behavior that we want. Right? It's systemizing and driving the human behavior that we want. And sometimes that could be, taking a customer email or reminder, or delivering of tickets, for your movies, and saying, okay, look, there's a process that if a human to do it would take, 5 minutes of effort time. And that 5 minutes of effort time, let's assume we're paying sort of $30 an hour. Well, that's, $2.50, $5 worth of work. If we can sort of change that and give that to a machine who can execute that repetitively over and over and over, not only do we improve our customer experience, because it's going to operate 24/7 by 365 without us, but it's also going to deliver that far more efficiently. Now, if we know that I've delivered tickets and someone hasn't opened my tickets to my thing, well, maybe that's where I need to start raising an automation to drive a human intervention, meaning here's a task to pick up the phone and call when someone does something. Right? So, if we start to map out our process more effectively, we just say, okay, where can I, deliver an automated communication, and where do I need to drive and systemize a human connection, but have our machine do it for us, right? Have our machine tell us when that thing needs to happen and what's the priority of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's actually right where I was hoping you'd sort of go to. So I know we've had discussions around that as well when we were looking at some automation stuff. And I know it's something that, that I've implemented, and you talk about those sorts of things and the value out of that of automating task management type of activities. I know it's been very powerful in my business, and, and it still very much drives that human interaction side of things and makes it a personal business. But, in my mind, I know it's there. I don't have to think about it. It doesn't take up headspace and mind space, which is, again, that's the time that I want to get back. I want to get my own head back to be doing the in-depth other activities that we want to be doing. So, that's really, I love the way that you position that and the way that you explain that as well, Tim. So thank you for sharing that. and conscious of time. We've whipped through so much already in this short space of time.
Well, look, let me give you a really cool example. Okay, and I've got my CRM, and my CRM is my customer relationship management system. Okay, and that's quite different from a marketing automation tool, right? Often you'll find the two together, but not always. But I'll log into my CRM every morning. I have it actually in terms of what I've got open on my desktop. I've got my CRM open on one screen. It tells me what I need to be doing. So if I log in today and it says, hey, you need to contact Craig, it's been 4 weeks since you've reached out. All right. Well, I know that as a referral partner of mine, well, I need to reach out to Craig and say, mate, how's things going? It might be a text message. It might be just to jump onto your social media and take a look at what you've been doing and share that post. But if I didn't have the machine driving me, and we hadn't spoken for a little while, there's a real chance of that relationship breaking down again. And 6 months later, I'm going, oh, that guy, who was he? I haven't spoken to him for a while. And you're like, well, I haven't referred you either. And that's the sort of stuff. Okay, same thing on your customer onboarding process. If we're onboarding, one or two clients is nice and easy, but what does it look like when we get to 15 clients we're trying to onboard at the same time? And I go, I know at day 10, I want to reach out and say, I just want to check in and make sure everything's kind of as expected. Is there anything we can do for you? And if I forget one of those 15 customers or two of those 15 customers because I've got some other things, or maybe we slept in this morning and the kid's running late for school, or one of my staff has just like quit, or I've got another customer who's got like not happy, there's a real chance of us actually forgetting to execute that part of our process. And it might be a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was like, oh shit, it's been now 3 weeks since I did my 10-day check-in. Look, it won't matter, right? But here's the thing, right? It does matter. Because now we're not delivering in a way that customer's going to go, I'm going to do that again. And they're not going to tell anybody about us either, right? So again, that more we can systemize and have our systems drive the human behavior, the more likely we are to get the results we want and really scale our business much faster and further than we thought possible.
Yeah, that's a great circling back to what we talked about at the very start, generating growth in business and being able to sort of come full circle on that. For people that potentially aren't doing some of those activities at this point, or they're either new to business, or they've been in business but they've got to a certain ceiling point and they're hitting that point where it's like, how do I take that next step and that next level? What's the sort of one idea that sort of you would love for them to sort of get them going on the right path to systemization, organization, and humanizing those components of that as well?
Well, I'd also reach out and connect, which you can certainly do at winmoreclients.com.au/connect. But I think the thing is, look at where you spend your time. And if you're not spending your time in your genius zone, the stuff that drives your business forward, the stuff that you love doing and you could do all day long, and certainly obviously the stuff that you can do, really competently, have a really solid conversation with yourself about whether you should be doing these activities or whether you should be delegating, outsourcing, potentially even eliminating from business altogether, or automating in your business and say, okay, look, I don't need to be doing that function. It doesn't really add a huge amount of business value, and I really don't like doing it. Right? So that's probably my advice. But look, reach out to someone like yourself, Craig, or me, and have a chat.
That's awesome, and I know that does touch upon a couple of books over my shoulder here. What you talk about there, the delegating, eliminating, actioning in the Clockwork book up here is written by Michael Kalowitz and those sorts of things as well. And totally agreed, having that reflection time, self-assessment, and you touched on it a bit earlier as well, the mapping out and planning out what things should look like and where things should sit. And then, yes, big believer in getting the right people doing the right things to help support you through that process. And, I know we've been a part of a number of different groups and mentoring groups and coaching. I know I've always had sort of at any given time, a couple of mentoring groups and people helping along the way, as I know you have as well. And just to touch upon that again, obviously, love you to share. Where can people find you? You touched on the Win More Clients.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to have a chat, reach out, winmoreclients.com.au/connect. You're more than welcome to sort of jump into my Facebook community. I run a community called the Marketing Automation Lab. You can find the links to that. You can connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn, or book a call if you want to sort of look at what we can do for your business and how we can sort of break through some of those barriers you might be facing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll obviously put those show notes, those links and contact points in the show notes as well. And yeah, feel free to reach out. And as always, thank you very much for your time. Always good catching up, Tim. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more chats, and hopefully we'll get more of these out in the future as well, because I know there's a whole bundle of knowledge that we can pick apart a little bit further down the track. So thanks again for being on board today.
No, it's great. Great to see you. And
so that wraps up another great installment of the Profit Project series in the Generating Growth. If you want to follow more of this content, continue to follow us at theprofitproject.com.au. Until next time, catch you later.